Hello to whoever is joining me. I'm going to give a few minutes for everyone to come on. And I'm just checking to make sure that I'm on live. Okay. Again, hello and happy hump day or Wednesday. I'm just giving a few minutes for others to join us. If you are joining me tonight, um, put your name in the comments, say hello, and tell me where you're joining me from. I am just looking at my phone because I'm trying to make sure that I'm broadcasting on all of my social media. So I am so happy to be here tonight. I know that there may be some of you who cannot make the live. So if you join me on the replay, make sure you put hashtag replay and let me know that you watch the replay and let me know what you think about what we're talking about tonight. So like I said, I'm just trying to give a couple more minutes for people to join me. And tonight's topic is 3 ways to balance your life. And that came from a conversation that I was having with a couple of friends of mine, and I'll get into that in a minute. Um, but I wanted to expand on it because so many of us ask that question. And what I mean by us is women, moms, working moms, whether you are a boss mom running your own business or whether you are working outside the home or you are at home with your children, you still work. Okay. Whether you, sorry about that, I got a little feedback. Let me see, I have a couple of comments. Okay. Um, hello. Thank you for joining me. I'm going to go ahead and get started. I'm going to go ahead and get started. I'm not sure why I can see the comments on my phone, but I cannot see them on the screen. Okay. Um, I am going to, for those of you who recently connected to me or who've been connected to me for a while, but I've just never introduced myself because I have not been um, very visible in the past couple of years, I think since before COVID. A lot of things have been going on. My name is Tyra D. Jones. I am an author, speaker, and purpose coach. And I wanted to come tonight to share a few gems with you, something that I've experienced in my life. And so, anytime God takes me through something and shows me something, I like to share it because I know it's not just me who needs to hear these things. So, tonight's topic, 3 ways to balance your life, came from a conversation that I was having with a couple of friends of mine a few days ago. Sorry, that's my baby. She does not want to go to sleep tonight. Um, Came from a conversation I was having with a couple of friends of mine. And we are all moms. Two of us have our own business, and one is a working mom outside the home. And we were discussing the dilemma that most moms face. How do I have my goals, my personal things that I want to do as far as career, whether it be business, whether you teach, or anything that you do that God has called you to do? How do I do that and still balance motherhood, being a good wife, And I want to say that question, we were talking and I was asking them how they do it. And we all came to the conclusion that sometimes things just get dropped. And that really bothered me because I feel like God, when He calls us to something, we are we are capable to do it because He gives us what we need. It's just how do we manage? How do we balance? And so I wanted to discuss that tonight with you for just a few minutes. Thank you again for those of you who are joining. And I'm looking at my comments. Hi, Mom. Thank you for joining me. Thank you, Kenny, for joining me. And thank you, Miss Nicole, for joining me. The reason I wanted to discuss this topic is because so many of us struggle with it. And instead of overcoming it and finding balance, we often tend to drop the things that are important to us for sake of being a mom and being a wife and being good at those two things. And I don't know if any of you follow Bishop T.D. Jakes, or if you saw what just happened at the Woman Thou Art Loose conference last week. And in that, he was passing the mantle to his daughter, Pastor Sarah Jakes Roberts. And one thing he said that stood out to me, and I posted it to my page, and he said that you can be a leader and still be a great mom and still be a great wife. So we don't have to drop one for the other. We can still lead in the ways that God called us to lead and still be great at those other two hats that we wear. We don't have to drop the things that are important to us for the sake of being good at the other two things. We just have to find balance. So I wanted to talk to you a few minutes about balance and how do we get there. So we know that we can do it, but how is it that we can get there? And God has been really taking me through this for the last couple of years because I'm not sure how many of you I've shared this with in my day-to-day life. I post sometimes about our babies, but our story started. We have adult children. When we moved to Houston back in 2015, we only had one child left in the house. Our other kids are adults, and so they were on their own. And I miss having kids in the home. And my husband had always had a dream to do foster care. And so after we went through the process, we started bringing kids into our home, never thinking that we would ever adopt. We just wanted to give back and to help where there's a need, or where there was a need. And so bringing it forward to 2020, we adopted a little girl in July 2020, and we also had two little boys in our home. And we we just followed the calling that God gave us. So now we went from having kids who were adults and an older teenager to having littles again. And this was a life changing experience for us because I was used to having kids who were self sufficient. I had just written my first book and launched it in 2017. So I started my own business, and adding in littles again was a little bit difficult because there was an adjustment period. And so I had to balance, but it was easy to balance because 2020, the world shut down. So it was easy to run a small business, to continue writing, and to do the things that I desired to do because the world was closed. And in January 2020, I launched my second book. Again, it was easy because everything was manageable at home. But the longing within me was there. I had dropped everything and I told myself, okay, this is what God wants me to do. He wants me to be a mommy. So I'm going to hit the ground running. I'm going to be super successful in that. I'm going to be the best in that I can be. I'm going to give it my all. And I'm going to put my stuff aside. Maybe that was just for a time. Maybe writing books was just for a time. And so I pushed that aside to focus fully on raising the kids, being a great mom, giving them everything that they need. But the longing never went away. I still felt my calling pulling me, and yet I felt guilty. I felt guilty because I felt like, okay, well, you have everything that your heart desires. And yet there was still that part of me that wanted more. And sometimes as women, we tend to feel guilty for wanting more. And why is that? Why is it that we feel like we have to give up everything when we become a mom? Or we have to give up everything to be able to be successful at motherhood, be successful at being a good wife. God never said that we had to give up the purpose that He gave us. And so the longing continued to pull at me, and I continued to go back and forth to God and say, God, I know that you gave me this purpose. So I know that if you gave me this purpose, that it's not gone, it's not finished, it's still there. And so it has taken me about a year to get back to the place where I feel like I can do this. But before I could get back here, and seeking God and asking Him how to do this, I had to get balance. I had to understand that yes, you can do this, and God is going to give me the strength to do it. But I had to be balanced in every area of my life. And so I wanted to share a few tips with you in case you are a working mom or a mom, boss mom running your own business, or even if you're at home and you desire to do something different and you feel like, I don't know how I'm going to do it. I wanted to share a few of my tips with you, things that have worked for me. Um, and just to give you a little background, since 2020, we have our adoptive daughter, who I don't call her adoptive because she's mine. We have the two little boys that we had in 2020, and we're headed to adoption with them. And we also have their two baby sisters. So that brings us up to five. And it's a juggling, it's a daily juggling. Our calendar looks scary, but it's manageable because we have balance and we figured out how to make it work for us. And what I mean by we is I mean my husband and I, we are a team, and we have worked it so that we bounce off of each other, and we're able to keep each other going and moving in the right direction and doing things that we need to do, him not dropping the things that he desires to do and me not dropping mine, so that we can both get what we need. Um, and so I wanted to talk about why it's important for us to have something of our own as moms and wives. Because when at the end of the day, when you've taken the kids to their activities, when you've done everything for your husband, you've cooked your dinner, you've cleaned the house, and at the end of the day, you still want something for yourself. It helps you have it creates an identity for you. You are more than just a mom. You are more than just a wife. You are a woman that God created to do great things. And you can still do those great things and still be able to be successful at those other two areas that you handle and you manage. So it's not just about your identity, it's about feeling fulfilled. Every time I wrote a book and published it, it was big for me because it wasn't about the sales. It wasn't about whether people loved my book or hated it. It was about something that I achieved, something that I could say, I accomplished that. I accomplished something that I didn't think I could ever do. I'm going to see if I have any comments. I don't want to miss any comments on here. Um, but it's about something that I did that was my own. When our kids achieve something, whether it's in a sport they do or in school, they get a good grade, they come home. Whether you have kids at home, I homeschool. So whenever my two that I homeschool get a good grade or they do well at something, they're so excited to share it with me and my husband. And it's the same way with me. I'm so excited that I accomplished something. So it's a sense of fulfillment and accomplishment. It also boosts my self esteem because sometimes we allow self defeating thoughts to tell us, well, you're just a mom. And I hate it when someone says, when they used to ask, well, what do you do? Well, before I went back to my writing, I stay at home with my children and I homeschool. Oh, you're just a mom. And I hate that because it downgrades you to basically, well, you're not worth anything. And anyone who stays home with their kids, that's hard work. It's harder to go outside and do a job outside than it is to stay at home with your kids, because you wear multiple hats. You're their teacher, you're their mom, and sometimes that's a hard job. So it's not just about your identity, it's not just about fulfillment, but it's also about your self-esteem. So we have to understand that we can do it all, we can have it all. Can I have it all? Yes, I can, with balance. So the first thing that I want to share with you is about self-care. In order for us to do the things that we need to do, wear the multiple hats, and still keep everything, up in the air, all the balls in the air without dropping something, first we have to start with self care, because we are no good to our career, our business, our children, our husbands, if we are not taking care of us. And so I always say I can do it all and I can have what God says I can have. But first, I have to start with self care. I have to make sure that I'm getting enough rest, even though we have a 7 month old right now. She still gets up in the night, and then two of our babies are not very good sleepers. So they're up during the night off and on. But I still have to make sure that I get enough rest, even if it's sleeping a little later. I don't schedule appointments too early in the morning if I don't have to. 9 o'clock, no. Because if I'm up and down throughout the night, then I need to make sure that I get enough rest. And since I homeschool, we start our day usually around 10, 10:30. That works for us. And that's another thing. You have to figure out what works for you. You can't look at someone else and say, okay, well, that works for them, so I'm going to fit it in. Because I used to do that. I follow a lot of, I'm part of a lot of homeschool groups. And so I would look at groups, the comments in the groups, and a lot of moms, oh, we start at 7, 7:30. I tried that. It was a disaster because I was cranky, the kids were cranky, and it just did not work for our household. So you have to do what works for you. And in that self care, I include my time alone with God. I have to get up a little bit earlier than the kids. Some mornings that doesn't work because it's like they know and they get up early too. But for the most part, I try to get up earlier than the kids so I can have a long time and get my mind together, gather my thoughts so that I'm focused and I have time to pray, have devotion, maybe read a little of a book that I may be reading. That's needed. I used to have this motto. I have a nightgown that says this. It has this saying that says, I'll start working when my coffee does. I I would drink coffee. I'd get up. Coffee was my go to because it was my pick me up. If I had a long night, if I stayed up late at night and didn't get a lot of rest, I'd get coffee and be drinking coffee all day. And it became something that I couldn't do anymore because it was not healthy for my body. And it just wasn't the best go to thing. So instead of drinking coffee, not to offend any coffee drinkers, I had to get off of coffee because it wasn't the best thing for my body. Um, and so getting the right amount of rest is better than putting something else in your body to make up for the lack of sleep that you didn't get. And talking about self care, eating healthy, eating right, so that you have the right amount of energy to do everything that you need to accomplish in that day. So it's all about taking care of the temple that God gave us, treating it right, because if we break down, then we can't do anything for anybody else who needs us. And so that's why self care is important, taking care of me, having time where I'm just alone with my thoughts so I can gather my thoughts. Sometimes when that's not possible and the kids are running around, I give them a day like right now. Things have been so crazy in our household with so many different changes. Since I homeschool, I create our own schedule and we homeschool year round. So, with our year round schedule, the reason we do year round is so that we can take breaks when needed. Right now, we've been on a 3 week break. Now, that doesn't mean she doesn't do school at all or our son doesn't do school at all. It's just Like, for instance, we're doing lab books right now where it's not all book work, it's something that they can still learn, and I can get the time that I need to do the things that I need to do, because the last 3 weeks I've been working on getting my business back up and running. So, adjusting and making adjustments where needed. My point number two is about um, the calendar. Now, we have three calendars. I have a planner. I use my electronic calendar on my phone, and we have a calendar on the refrigerator. Like I said earlier, our schedule is scary. We have five kids. We have one baby who has appointments every week, 2 to 3 times a week. We have activities, another child who has outside activities. We have two other kids who have a lot of doctor's appointments. We have the 7 month old. So we have a lot of doctor's appointments. We have a lot of things going on, plus our own personal things that we're trying to get accomplished. So it's important for us to have multiple calendars, keep reminders in our faces. Um, what I do every month is I sit down, like this week, I'll be doing this for October. I sit down with my planner. I look at my phone. Every appointment that I've put in my phone, I transfer it to my planner. And once I do that, I transfer all of that information to the calendar on our fridge. And I do that by the month because I like to look at the month ahead to see what's going on. What can I start planning for now before the month gets here? And then every week on Sunday, I sit down Sunday evening and I look at the week. Okay, what's going on this week? Do I have to move anything? Has anything happened, like a scheduled event that I need to move from this day to that day? And then on the day, but every night, I look at the calendar again for the next day. And I do that because there have been times where I did not check and double check, and maybe my husband scheduled an appointment for one of the kids, or I scheduled something and we've double booked because one of us or both of us didn't look at the calendar, or we forgot to transfer it to the other two calendars. Sounds crazy, but it works for us. And again, you have to figure out what works for you. In addition to that, we do what I like to call daily check-ins. How are you doing? Are you good? I always say, my husband knows, I always say, let's talk, or let's have a business meeting. And we call it business meetings is because we run our home like a business, because it works for us, and we want to make sure that it's a smoothly oiled machine, because if we drop something, then that means something doesn't get done for one of the kids, or something doesn't get done for one of us. And with so much going on, we can't afford to drop anything. And that brings me to the last point under the calendar: never over scheduling. It happens, and sometimes you think, okay, well, I already have three appointments on the calendar. I can do one more because it's so many hours in a day, but then you got to take into account traffic. What if one appointment goes longer than it should? So we try not to schedule more than two appointments, maybe three in a day. We call it divide and conquer. He may have to do one thing, and I handle the kids, or so we switch up and we alternate. And in that, our team, we work as a team, but it's not just us as a team. Our children's doctors, their dentists, the orthodontist, because my daughter wears braces, the activities we're in, even down to the person who does my hair. We have communicated to them, look, we have five babies. We're trying to juggle a life, so that nothing drops. And so there are times our team of doctors, dentists, everyone is so used to me. I may call and say, okay, well, for example, one of our babies is currently in speech therapy. She gets speech therapy outside of the home, and she gets someone coming into the home, and she needed to have occupational therapy added. Well, that was just added this week, so I had to call her other occupational therapist who comes in the home to let him know, hey, I have to reschedule your appointment for next month, It's on October 17th, but I like to give everyone advance notice because we've just added more on our calendar. So I'm rearranging things. And because we communicate with our team who helps us, then they understand, and it's not something that's difficult because they know we have a huge family and they have always been gracious to work with us. And with that, we moved back in January, but because we have a great team of doctors, we refuse to change our kids to doctors who are closer to where we live because they work with us. They work around what we need. And so, in addition to the doctors and everyone on that team, we also, because two of our babies are still in foster care, we have um, foster care agency, we have CPS coming in, we have occupational therapists, speech therapists coming into the home. We also have speech therapy, occupational therapy going out. So we have a lot going on, and that would not be able to work if we did not have balance, if we did not have a calendar or three calendars and had check ins and accountability with each other. There are times when, like I said, we've been on a 3 week break from um, doing book work, and we've only been doing lab work. And my son has been working on writing his name, learning how to write it properly. Very menial or minimal work because I've been trying to get my business back up and running. And I just simply had a talk with my husband, and I said, okay, I need to scale back school for 3 weeks to give them something other than book work, because with book work, I was finding that before I took the break, my indication that we needed a school break for a few weeks was I usually grade papers every night. I usually grade their papers every night so that I could give them their work back the next day to make corrections so that we could move on to the next lesson. Well, I found that I was starting to, okay, well, I'll grade every 2 days, or then it turned into I'll grade every 3 days, and then it turned into, well, I'll only grade papers on the weekend. Well, that was a problem because with the way that we school, my daughter has 7 subjects, and we alternate days with subjects. So because she's learning two foreign languages and she's doing all of the other subjects, so it started to snowball on me, and I it started to get out of control. That's when you know you are beyond your limits. And so I knew I had to, something had to give because things were starting to drop, and that's never what we want to happen. So she's still learning because we're studying topics right now, and she's still learning. My son is still learning how to write his name. Now we're going to Orlando next week, so they'll have a break from everything, complete school break. And then we get back, we'll be back on it because I have a handle on everything. So when you know that you're starting to drop things, then you know, okay, something needs to change and I need to scale back a little to reevaluate, reassess. And when I realized that, I had a conversation with my husband because we communicate about everything, because he's just as involved in their education as I am. And I don't make a decision as important as their education without us discussing it first. And so that's what happened with that. Now, so we talked about self-care, taking care of you. We talked about the calendar. The third thing that I want to talk about is time management. That is similar to the calendar, but a little bit different because you may have everything on the calendar. You may, feel good. You may be getting everything accomplished. But if you keep adding things on, because you want to keep saying yes to every commitment, to everyone who asks you to do something, then that's going to create a backlog of the things that should be priority. So learning when to say no. It's okay to say no and still be okay. There's no guilt. What I used to say is, okay, well, let me talk to my husband about that. And he would do the same thing because that would give us an out. And it would also give us a chance to think about it. Do we really want to add this to my plate? If I add this to my plate, is something else going to drop? Is something else going to become less of a priority than it should be? So learning when to say no, learning when, okay, I can't do that right now. Even if it's important to that person, it their emergency or something that's important to them doesn't have to trump what's important to you. So learning when to say no. The other thing is learning your limits, knowing when, okay, I got enough, I can't handle anymore because it's just too much. And when I think about that, I think about when we first started fostering and we had 5 kids. We had a sibling group of 3, and then we had our, sorry, I was looking at my comments. Right, being, my husband said, being honest with each other and knowing when you can't handle anymore. And that's a good point because that's what I was going to bring up next. So we had a sibling group of 3, and then we had my daughter, and then one of our little boys, and then our 2-year old, he was born, and the caseworker called my husband, and she said, "Well, can you take him now?" So that would have brought us to 6 kids. And my husband called me. He was really excited because we had been expecting his birth. We knew he was coming, but we thought that the 3 siblings would have been gone by the time he was born. And so he called me excited and he was like, "Yeah, she just called me, said that he was born. Can we take him?" And I said, "Well, what did you say to her?" He said, "I told her yes." And I said, "Are you crazy?" I had just told him a couple of days before that I couldn't handle anything else because I was at my max, because we had done a check-in meeting. And I said, "Okay, well, remember the conversation we had. I can't do any more than what we had," because at that time, our daughter that we have now, she was 6. We had a 6-year-old little boy. Then we had 2 2-year-olds and a 4-year-old. So that's 5. Yeah. So, and then we would have added a newborn. And I said, "No, can't do it." So we had to tell the CPS worker, "We can't handle another child right now. Yes, we want him, but we have to wait until the sibling group goes home," which happened to be a few weeks later. But that's just an example of knowing when to say no, knowing what your limits are, and knowing that it's okay without feeling guilty. Because the thing about it is that no one knows your limits better than you do. No one knows when you're at your capacity and when you're about to burst because you have too much on your plate. So it's important for you to know your limits, for you to do check-ins with your spouse or a friend. If you're a single mom, just do check-ins. Keep yourself accountable and make sure that you are not taking on more than you need to take on. And so I just think that it's so important for us to be able to balance, because God has so many great things for us, and he has brought us to this place to make a decision. Okay, are we going to make excuses about why we can't? Because I've done that. I've said, "Okay, I have 5 kids. I can't I can't handle doing what he called me to do." And that's not sorry, I'm looking at the comments. That's not acceptable because God gave me a purpose to fulfill. There are so many people out there. I read in a friend's book, she said there are so many people out there waiting for you to do what God called you to do. And if you don't do it, is he going to assign someone else to that, or are they going to die on the vine waiting for you to come out and step out and do what he's called you to do? And so when you look at it like that, there are things that we can do that nobody else is going to be able to do, because God specifically assigned us that purpose. He gave it specifically to you and to me to fulfill. He created us, and when he created us, he created us with a purpose to fulfill. So no more excuses. We can do this. There are so many great things that we have to offer the world. So why not start now? And so I wanted to just get on and talk to you all for a few minutes and share the things that I have been able to do in my life to find balance and to be able to not just find balance in being a mother or being a wife, but being a business owner, being because I'm a speaker, I'm an author, finding time to write that book that God has given me to write. My writing career is not over. It's just beginning. Yes, I've published a few other books, but there's still so many books left in me to write. And so now is the time to do what he's called me to do. So I wanted to share that with you, and I'd like to open up. If you have any questions, I'm just reading some of the comments. Marjorie says, sometimes we are the other, as in, I'm waiting for the other person to do this. It took me years to realize this. So important, Miss Marjorie. We keep waiting for somebody else to do that. Well, she's going to step out and do that, or he's going to step out and do that. Why not you? Why not you stepping up to do what you know needs to be done? Example with foster care, there are so many children waiting to have a home, to have a permanent home. And I've had so many people say, oh, you're a super mom, you're a superwoman. No, I'm not. I'm just a woman doing what God called me to do. I'm being obedient to the call. And speaking of the call, God has given me more than just a call to be a mom in a safe place to kids who need it. He's also called me to be an author. He's also called me to be an amazing wife. He's also called me to be a speaker. He's also called me to help people find their purpose so that they can do what I'm doing, walking in my purpose every day and loving it. Because it's only when you fulfill the call that God has on your life that you will truly have joy, joy that only He can give you. Let me look at another of the comments. Right, He's not going to put more on us than we can handle. Um, But if we feel like it's too much, it's because we're not balanced in some area of our lives. So we have to sit down and we have to evaluate and look at the big picture and say, okay, well, where do I need to tweak? What am I doing that's causing things to fall apart? And so that's what we need to do when that happens. So this is my first time speaking in, gosh, about 2 years. And I was a little bit nervous about it because I wasn't sure how it was going to go. I'm so excited that I pushed through the fear. I'm so excited that I pushed through all the distractions to be here with you tonight, because I have been so looking forward to reconnecting and getting myself back out there, because there's so many things that God has for me to do. And speaking of things that He has for me to do, stepping outside of my comfort zone, I have a seminar coming up on December 10th. It's called Pain to Purpose, the Pain to Purpose seminar. I will be doing that again on December 10th. It'll be from 1 p.m. to 5 p.m. I will be posting the link later tonight, as well as I'll be putting a flyer out there sometime tomorrow, so that you could go to Eventbrite and get your seat. I do have openings for vendors. If you are a vendor and you'd like to join me, that information is on Eventbrite, so you'll find that information at the link as well. I am so excited to connect with you in person and continue to connect with you during my lives every week. So I am getting ready to sign off so that I can put my last little to bed. But I wanted to thank you for those of you who joined me live, and thank those of you who are going to watch the replay. Please stay tuned for the event link. Again, it's December 10th. It's the Pain to Purpose seminar. In that seminar, we'll be talking about purpose transformation, how you rediscover who you are, discover the purpose that God has for you, whether you know your purpose or you don't know it and need to discover it. Whatever category you're in, this conference is for you. We will be helping you to balance every aspect of your life. So, giving you tools to balance every aspect of your life. Also, we will be talking about balancing whether it's your um, business, whether it's your home life, whether it's being a wife, all of that wrapped up into one is who you are. So bringing balance to your life. Also, I will be sharing my story and sharing how God helped me to come from the pain of my past to where I am now, walking in my purpose, and how He transformed me from the pain that I was in, the painful cocoon that I was in, and how I am flourishing now as a butterfly. You too can flourish despite the pain that you've been going through in your past. So I really am looking forward to sharing more about the conference with you and, well, seminar with you, and just looking forward to reconnecting. So, thank you, Miss Marjorie. Thank you for joining me. So, I will be connecting with you throughout the week with more information about the seminar and sharing other exciting things that are going on in my life. One thing that I share with the people on my email list, side note, if you want to be added to my email list, you can send me a private message and I'll add you so that you can get I usually share things um, beforehand with them. They get little tidbits. For example, I am going to be sharing an excerpt from my new book with my email list. So if you want to see that excerpt, send me a message, send me your email, and I'll add you to my email list. But one of the things that lost my train of thought. Oh, the book. I was going to be talking about the book. One of the things that I'm working on is my next book. And the title of that book is They Call Me Mommy. And I'm sure you can guess. God gave me that title a couple of years ago. And I could not start writing it because the story was not far enough along. Some of you have followed our journey with foster care, and you've seen the ups and the downs that we've endured with the process. So I'm going to be sharing things about our journey so that it may help someone else who decides to go through the journey. Um, and I'm also going to be sharing things about my journey as a mom, from raising my older kids, being a single mom, being a divorced mom, to now being a happily married mom, and how God has transitioned me through each stage and kept me through each season. So, looking forward to sharing all of that with you. Thank you again for joining me tonight, and I will see you guys in the comments, and I will be seeing you guys on my next live. Thank you guys. Good night.